Hey YouTube, Awesome Rider here. Today's video is going to be a Power Rangers related video. Obviously you could tell by the title. You didn't click on this thinking this was Bakugan. Bakugan? You dealing drugs? Anyway, something I was thinking about recently as we were getting the Reignition line and then the Fortnite collab is, and also the reboot might be on the horizon. I'm still being very I'm being very cautiously optimistic, which is caustic. But I'm being very cautiously optimistic because I was way more positive that the Hasbro original reboot would happen and that fell through. So I just want to prepare myself that it might not happen. But regardless, I was thinking about this around, specifically when Fortnite came out. Not the game, but, you know, the collab with Power Rangers. That there's actually a lot more going on with Power Rangers, or at least it's in the works than we thought. You know, we're obviously coming off one of the quietest periods Power Rangers has had. I think maybe one of the lowest morale points as Cosmic Fury winded down and then the reboot was kind of quietly canceled. And, you know, Power Rangers has had its quiet periods before, and I've always talked about how funny it is that the fandom has probably some of the most negative reactions to quiet periods compared to other fandoms, because we're not used to it. Because the franchise just won't die. It's like, why won't you die? You know, the only other quiet period I can think of is, of course, between mmpr Remastered and Samurai, but that's like no time at all. So many other franchises will go completely dormant for years. And Power Rangers almost never stays dead for very long. You know, they always regenerate, they always come back. And that was the case here too. You know, it was a very low point there for a hot minute where you really only had the comics and the odd mmpr merch, but then almost immediately they're like, oh, maybe we're doing another reboot with Paramount, maybe we're doing a reboot with Disney, we're doing this Reignition line. And it kind of made me realize we're slowly getting to this period where there's actually quite a bit going on with PR. Now, I don't think Hasbro is going to be banking on PR becoming this huge juggernaut. It feels more like they're outsourcing everything to sort of make money with their purchase. Because we all know the story, or at least some of us do. There's still the narrative around there that Hasbro is just a mustache-twirling villain that wanted to kill the brand on purpose. But really, it was just a case of the person who had the ambition to make it happen and to make something of it died, and then no one else really wanted to do anything with it, which is understandable. It's kind of like that episode where Rachel got a promotion in Friends and then her boss died before she could tell anybody about it. That's the story of Hasbro's Power Rangers era. So my point with that is every time you say something that's not negative about Hasbro, and don't paint the fans as a victim, I get called a shill. But what I'm just saying is, I think Hasbro is at least putting some effort into trying to make money out of this, even if it's outsourcing it. I don't think there's anybody super passionate about making it happen. You know, sometimes there are producers and people behind the scenes at Hasbro, Disney, Paramount, whatever, that are really excited about getting a project to happen. But I don't think that's the case in Power Rangers. I'm sure there's people that'll work on the show, if we get the show, that'll be passionate about it. But I think right now they're just passionate about making money off of something they're stuck with. But it is worth noting that, you know, they are trying to do something with it. If they really didn't want to do anything with it and completely hated having it or whatever, they would have either sold it, and maybe they will sell it. Maybe they'll end up selling it back to Disney or something. I don't know. I don't think that'll happen. But you know what I mean? Like, they would have sold it, like, immediately. Like, I feel like once they winded down, they would have sold it after Cosmic Fury and the reboot was canceled, or they could have just let it completely sit there and thought maybe someone will pick this up one day, or we'll sell it down the road, but right now, you know, we don't want to do anything with this. So I think it is just worth noting that, yet again, Power Rangers couldn't stay dead, and they are getting the ball rolling on some things. Like, the reboot is probably the most exciting thing in terms of new potential, and I want to talk about that at the end. That's the last thing I'll close on, is talking about that. But it is worth noting that even if it's the stuff the fans don't really like, the hardcore fans, that is, you know, mmpr, they are trying to make things happen to keep PR in the public consciousness. Obviously, I think the Reignition thing is the most bare bones thing, because they just wanted to have a line out there, and then, you know, the show, quote unquote, is the most low effort thing, and it's just kind of a way to have more advertisement for the toys, so that kids will see it on Netflix or on YouTube, or parents will put it on for their kids, and then the kid will be like, I want a Morpher, and then they can go get it. So that, I think, is just kind of the most low level, like, yeah, we can do something with this type of thing. But I think the Fortnite thing is significant. Like, yeah, it is mmpr, but that's the only thing that's going to make noise. Like, they would do a Time Force character, or Carter or something, people are like, who the hell is that? You know, who's this knockoff Power Ranger or whatever? So obviously they're going to do mmpr, and then there's Tommy skins and whatever that's happening. But that was kind of significant, because that's a pretty major thing, Fortnite, and, you know, it got a lot of eyeballs on it. And I think that was probably the biggest move. Like, I think the Reignition thing is white noise. I don't think anybody that's in larger nerd geek spaces is going to notice the Reignition line or the thing on Netflix, because it's usually in the kids section. But I think they did notice the Fortnite stuff, and I think that's a good sign that they're wanting to keep it in the public consciousness to sort of gear up for the reboot. And that's when I was thinking, maybe there's more going on with Power Rangers than I thought. I was thinking it was more on autopilot, but now with all this stuff going on with Fortnite and the possible reboot, I do think they are getting the ball rolling on something happening. And something else interesting before I get to the reboot I wanted to talk about was the public reaction is, recently in the last few days as of me recording this, some Disney-era fight scene clips went quote-unquote viral. Not viral, what do you call it? Trending. They trended on Twitter. Viral. Well, sort of, but they trended. Every now and then you'll get PR fight scenes trending on Twitter, and people are like, wow, I can't believe how cool this is. 9 times out of 10, it's a Disney-era scene, and not them doing picnic table flips and mmpr or getting knocked into boxes in Lightspeed Rescue. I mean, there were some good fight scenes there, but the Disney-era fight scenes were on another level. And people will bring that up to me sometimes of being like, well, people would love Ninja Storm or whatever, SPD for Fortnite or toys because it went trending on Twitter. I'm like, Twitter's not real life. Like, you'll see that very often when, you're even seeing a movie. Like, Twitter will be like, that movie's dog shit. And then you go on to the theater and everyone's loving it because Twitter isn't real life. It's just filled with miserable nerds. But what I do think is a good gauge of, or at least in my opinion from what I've experienced, a good gauge of the public perception of PR is the comments I read on Twitter, on YouTube, wherever else about the Fortnite collab is almost equally like, yeah, mmpr went so hard back in the day and this is lame trash. Like, it was almost even, those comments. And I think that's a much more accurate gauge of the perception. But the last thing I want to talk about in regards to the reboot is, while I do think they're trying to make things happen and make something of the show and get the ball rolling on it, I think we should temper our expectations. And obviously we don't know anything right now, so I can't be sure. But I don't think they're going to be doing a full court press on the show. I do think they're going to make an effort to make a good show. Like, I think they have a good creative team there. And I think they're obviously going to want to have another feather in their cap over at Disney Plus and Hulu and all that. But I don't think they're going to be going all out and trying to make it the next Transformers Turtles relaunch type of deal. I think it's going to be a midway point between what the marketing was for, like, season 1 of the new Doctor Who with Judy Gatwa. Because obviously we know how that turned out, but if you were following it in any way, they did a lot of marketing for season 1. Like, that was everywhere. Like, I was seeing commercials for it. Yeah, like, every time I turned the TV on, it would be my YouTube ads. They did a little bit of advertising for season 2, but season 1, they were clearly wanting to make this happen. So I don't think it'll be on that level, and I don't think it'll be like on something like Ironheart or that new Wakanda animated show that just came out, where they basically don't advertise it at all. I think it'll be right there in the middle, kind of like Percy Jackson. Now, I'm not a Percy Jackson fan or anything like that. I am trying to watch the show because I want to get a gauge for what PR will be like. And I watched the first episode and it was fine. I just having a hard time getting invested in it, and there's so much to watch. But anyway, like Percy Jackson, so I'm not a fan of it, so I'm not in the spaces, but that's like one of those shows on Disney Plus, like that, and the Wizards of Waverly Place sequel. And there's like a handful of other shows I just see around that clearly do pretty well. Like, I'll see an ad for it every once in a while, or I'll see an article on like TV Line, like, this just got renewed. And I think it's going to be on that level, where they're aiming for the middle. And I don't mean that in a bad way. I just mean, like, I think that's good. I think if they were trying to do a full court press and it all falls apart, that makes things worse. But if they're just trying to sort of aim for a certain audience, have it be like sustainably successful to a medium audience with potential to grow, I think that's a good thing. And I think that's what we're in store for. I'm tempering my expectations for that, as I think that's probably what's going to happen, is we're going to kind of aim for the middle. And who knows, maybe it could take off. They could just be aiming to be like, okay, decent advertising, decent show, but we're not trying to make this thing take off. And then it could wind up going viral or something. That's happened before. But I think it's interesting that I do think there is an effort to make something of PR, but it doesn't feel the same as when Hasbro initially announced their reboot plans, or when Saban did the movie, where it felt like they were really trying to make it a new generation hit. And I think this time they're just trying to make something that's sustainable. Kind of like what we had for years, but better because it might try to reach a wider audience. But what do you guys think? Do you think Power Rangers is actually in a better spot than we thought right now? Like, when the Fortnite thing came out, I just kind of looked around and thought we were kind of, down in the dumps, and then all of a sudden there was a lot more going on than I thought. Like, right at this moment, it's really just Fortnite and the Reignition line, and of course the comics, so it's not anything huge, but it is looking like we're turning a corner. So what do you guys think? Let me know in the comments as always. Until next time, Dawson Ryder, signing out.